All right. Well, hello. This is the Green Corner Rebellion Show. I'm Gregory Hardin II, and today I'm here with Connor or Counterpoints. He runs the YouTube channel Counterpoints and also streams on Twitch. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm phenomenal. Thanks for having me. So we were just talking before the show about being Twitter mutuals for a while. So I'm happy that my
Oh,
meme spamming hasn't driven you off yet.
yeah, it's good memes, really good memes.
Or, boomer memes. Like I
yeah,
appreciate you, but I
yeah,
know what I am. I'm
yeah. I was raised by boomers, so for me, boomer memes are very relatable. So yeah,
like a little slice of home.
yeah. But yeah, so first question I have is where are you from and where did you grow up?
So I was born in Boston, but my family is from like Central Florida, and so I moved every 3 years. So I actually lived in Central Florida when I was a young child. Lived in Belgium for 3 years, where I learned French and actually went to school in French. Then I moved to Texas for 3 years, and then I moved back to Florida. And then after moving back to Florida, I completed high school, and then I enlisted in the military. So then I went to Japan and Iraq and California, and then I decided to move back home. So really all over. But if I had to call one place home, it would be Central Florida, basically.
All right, that's interesting. So you were in the Marines and you were also a cop. Let's see. Could you tell me a little bit about your experience with both and what made you want to go into the military and also become a cop?
Yeah, so I was 13 or 14 when 9/11 happened. So my both of my grandparents were military veterans. My father's father was a CB or an engineer in the Pacific Theater, and he went to Guam. I don't think he ever made it to like mainland Japan, and I don't think he had anything too dangerous happen. But at the same time, there's a certain amount of risk when you're at war, right? And then my mother's father was a navigator on a B 17 Flying Fortress, and he actually did fly some missions into Germany during wartime. So, like military, I also have an uncle who was an Army Ranger. So, military history is a part of my family's culture. And then, not just that, but I saw 9/11 happen, and I was like, oh my God, this is my generation's version of Pearl Harbor. I can't ignore this. So my instinct, which was already to go to the military, was to like solidified. So it wasn't even a question in my mind whether or not I was going to go. So that's what got me to join the military. I was a person other than grunt, so I don't want to, which is basically a non-infantry person. So I don't want to claim to be like more hardcore than I actually am. But the Marine Corps in general is a very hardcore branch, so that's why I joined them basically.
All right, that's cool. So what made you want to become a cop, I believe afterwards?
Yeah, I wasn't done with my service basically. So the Marine Corps had been an intense and interesting experience where I felt like I'd gotten some really good training and done like at least hardcore training, if not like a hardcore deployment. And I'd been around lots of really intense people, and I loved what I did, but I never really wanted to be a killer, I guess. And so joining law enforcement was a way for me to continue my service, see and do hardcore things, but not really, go that extra mile where the explicit purpose of my role is to hurt or kill people.
Yeah.
And so I saw it as an opportunity to serve my community and do something cool and intense and prove myself to myself while hopefully also doing something positive. And I really do uh, love law enforcement. It is a great job despite all of the drawbacks of it.
All right. So what made you eventually start your YouTube channel and start streaming?
I wanted to do this since I was like, I wanted to do this since like, I don't know, maybe like 2008. Like I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to share my experiences. I've always wanted to communicate. If anything, that's like the main thing that I've always done is I talk too much. That's always what I've done. So that it was never in any doubt that I was going to do something like this. But I felt like I had to have something worth talking about first. So that's why I did the military and then law enforcement afterwards. And then once I was done, and there wasn't so much of a risk to my career, it seemed like an opportune time to kind of do this. And it was always my fantasy to be a reporter or a journalist or an author or something creative. So this was always in the cards for me.
That's interesting. Okay. Um, hmm. So explain to me what your politics are and how your politics have evolved over time.
Yeah, so I would say my main thing was I was raised by Christian conservatives, but they were raised in the Northeast, so they had a lot of like liberal temperament. They were very sympathetic to liberals, even if they weren't liberals themselves, and most of their friends were liberals. So they kind of raised me with like an anti-racist sentiment and a very like tolerant sentiment, I guess. And despite themselves individually being conservative, so I felt like I really got the best of both worlds, where I kind of got like a conservatarian. I guess that would be my thing, where it's like individually you're going to be conservative, but then you're liberal or libertarian when it comes to other people. That's the way my parents raised me, and then I always felt like I could understand both sides, even if I identified with the right. And then that my political evolution hasn't strayed too far from that. I feel like I understand like leftist thinkers a lot more. But my sympathies, the way that I start, like my mental and moral framework, is always from a conservatarian mindset, where it's like, hey, how do you individually live the best life possible? Which I think a conservative life tends to be pretty good for you long term. But at the same time, how do you treat other people with a certain level of dignity and fairness that allows them to figure out their own path through life? And that's aided me a lot in this space, where I think I can make conservative noises with my mouth without offending too many more people, because I can still say like, well, you do you at the end of the day, but this is what I think. So yeah.
Okay. Because, like, whenever, like, I've mostly listened to you, like, on panels and debates and stuff like that, or your conversations with Destiny or Vosh. And even though I don't always agree with you, it's nice to hear someone who's on the right who like sounds like they're living in the same world that I'm living in. Like so like,
We have
that's
similar data point. Yeah, isn't
yeah, like
isn't that
there's
brutal? Like that's our reality now, where we can't even agree on like the descriptors first before we get to anything
yeah,
prescriptive. Like I don't know. I identified a lot with that hesitancy. Like,
but yeah, like um so that's initially how I like got interested in you and always wanted to hear what you had to say whenever you were on one of the panels.
yeah,
Um,
I try to be a good
yeah,
balance of like I do get compliments for being like charitable and all that kind of stuff, but I also basically get accused of being spicy. So I try to do both at the same time. Like I try to be charitable in good faith, but also bring a little bit of the heat when it's needed.
yeah. So what are some issues or like policies that you tend to agree with liberals or leftists on?
Well, I think universal healthcare was the main one that I've come around on compared
Oh,
to the
really?
rest.
Okay.
Oh yeah, compared to the rest of the right wing, and I think it's because I ingested a lot of propaganda when I was younger, and then realizing that it wasn't true kind of made me come around on it and ask myself like, why do I really think what I think? And so my mom had kind of told me about like the death panels and like all that kind of crap, and how like healthcare was going to be wrestled away from private doctors, and it was going to screw us all over, and we were going to spend too much money on social programs, and it was going to destroy the world. That's kind of what I heard. But then even she kind of walked away from that stuff after a while, because basically what ended up happening was she got some sickness, and while in a public system she would have been screwed over, I think her getting sick actually did kind of open up her sympathy to other people who may not have as much financial benefits as my family has. My family's worked really hard, but we worked really hard just to get by, basically. So it was kind of always this like resentment of like, oh, well, you weren't as smart or as fast or as strong as us, so why do you get what I get? Was kind of like, I'm not saying that was like the intentional mentality, but that was kind of some of the rhetoric, right?
Hmm.
Whereas her getting sick and me kind of realizing how the money actually works, that kind of brought me around on universal healthcare. So for instance, like I want to say the Americans spend like 22 or 27% on healthcare per GDP, but then developed countries that spend similar amounts or have a universal program, they spend like between 12 and 17. So we spend like 30% more to not have universal healthcare. So
Yeah.
that just makes no sense unless you really don't want poor working people to have healthcare, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I was won over on that.
Okay. And what are some other issues that you tend to agree with liberals and leftists on? Like,
Well, liberals is easier. Like I would actually
yeah.
consider myself a liberal. Like so, universal
Hmm.
rights, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience. These are all things that I know and care about. The where I get away from liberals, quote unquote, is I still believe in controlled borders, and all that kind of stuff. And then I also still not only do I believe in controlled borders, but also like firearms get me really away from mainstream liberals because most mainstream liberals, if you were to ask like Democrats, like gun control is one of the things that like brings
Yeah.
them to mind. And I I think liberals are. I'm going to try not to use any bad words, but I think they're uneducated when it comes to firearms. Is a nice
Yeah.
way to put it. So identifying with liberals in that respect, it's like on some levels we're almost oil and water when it comes to that policy issue in particular, which makes me like super hesitant to go out into public and be like, oh, I'm a liberal, because
Hmm.
while in Twitch politics that might make me a Nazi, in the real world that makes me like heavily pro-choice and heavily anti-gun, and I'm neither one of those things, so that's hard with the label. But then with progressives, I would say that oftentimes I think progressives go too far. They don't know where to draw the lines. But the general sentiment being that like strong social support systems should be in place in order to enable the maximum of like human self-actualization. That's something I can definitely agree with, because I think that like the whole reason why we're on this planet in the first place is to become the best human beings possible that we can.
Hmm.
So where we draw those lines is where we bicker and differentiate. But that instinct to want to enable as many people as possible to live good lives, I identify with that very heavily.
Okay. What was I about to say? But yeah, I when it comes to guns, I definitely agree with you on that one. Where when like liberals, they don't really know much of anything about guns. At least most of them don't, from my experience. Because even people who I know, like I've known liberals here in Oklahoma who owned gun shops and whatnot, and they'll even tell me like, yeah, most Democrats don't know anything about guns.
And
it's
basically
it's
need to
like
shut
it's
up. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty funny, and also they don't understand like the rural perspective when it comes to guns and why. If sure, if you live in like an urban city where if something's happening to you, you can call the cops and the cops will be there in like 10 minutes or less than 15 minutes or whatever. Like I can understand why you personally would feel like you don't need a gun if you live in the city, but if you live in a rural area where it's going to take the police 20, 30, 40 minutes to get to you based on where you live, feels like you definitely should have a gun nearby or in your house or something like that. Um, so I just like, yeah, I agree with you definitely on that.
Well, the thing that I would offer to the city folk too, though, because I mean, I did work in law enforcement,
Mhm.
so like the response time is still
Yeah,
3 to 5 minutes, and when something is going bad, that could be you could be talking about a few seconds,
yeah,
being the difference between great injury or loss of life. So that's where for me, like I understand like why people might feel that way, but basically I would still recommend basically being responsible for your own security and kind of conceptualizing that like, hey, if I got into obviously the best prevention is not getting into an altercation in the first place. But if I was to get into an altercation and help was 3 minutes away, what would I want to be able to do? And that
Yeah.
should really guide your perspective, going forward for how you respond to guns or independence or anything like that.
Yeah. Let's see. So, with vaccines and the pandemic, what is your, let's see. I know you're vaccinated.
Hmm.
Um, so what is your stance on like vaccines, the mandates, and the reasons why people don't take the vaccines or whatever? What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I don't think that vaccines should be mandated by the state, but if private corporations want to do mandates, I'm perfectly fine with it. And when it comes to like me getting vaccinated, it seemed like, based off of available information, vaccines were just a good idea from a survivability standpoint. Like there could be a chance of like what is it, like myocarditis or whatever, like the
Yeah.
the heart inflammation. But guess what? One of the side effects of basically getting COVID is myocarditis. So what that told
Yeah.
me is that the vaccine, by introducing a small amount of the disease into your body, was having the same effects as the disease. So while I think it's to liberals or progressives' detriment to ignore that there are potential side effects for the vaccines, I also think it's to conservatives' detriment to pretend that like, oh well, I mean, who could have seen this coming, or basically the vaccines are as dangerous as the disease. Like that's clearly not true. And I kind of don't like the fact that what I view as a lot of like otherwise intelligent people seem to be capitalizing on the fear of people in order to get them to not be vaccinated. And I think that's pretty stupid and it's literally killed people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with all of it, where it's like individually, I think you should do it. I don't think it should be a state mandate. I think that we all need to be honest that there are risks to all behaviors.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like we need to be honest about those risks. Where getting vaccinated or getting a vaccination, 99% of the time is going to be the correct choice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much my take. When it comes to the state mandating, like in general, like with Biden's specific thing that he tried to do with what was it, private businesses over 100 employees have to get their workers vaccinated or have them tested every week or something like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I disagreed with that because I don't necessarily think people should have to lose their jobs if they don't take the vaccine. It just seems a little extreme to me. I'm okay with mandating it for certain things, like if you're a government worker or if you work in healthcare, especially healthcare. I feel like that's an obvious one. But other than that, I don't. But also at the same time, I also don't necessarily think, even with the side effects of the vaccines, I don't necessarily think there's like a valid reason as to why someone should oppose taking it. Even if your reasoning is it's not 100% effective at keeping you from getting it, no vaccine has ever been 100% effective at keeping anyone from getting whatever it is that the vaccine is for. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
think I
kind
think
of
that's
where
what
I'm at
I'm
with that.
resentful of
Yeah.
is the bullshit because it
Yeah.
feels like we could be honest about
Yeah.
what the risks are and say like, hey, yeah, there's a chance of some heart inflammation or some lung inflammation. Basically, we're not saying that there's no risk, but
No,
we're
yeah.
saying that it's a low risk, and if on balance, it's a good idea to do it for most people. And if you're one of those rare people, then do it in consultation with your doctor. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
that's like a crazy thing to say, but because of the political binary, one of the things that's like most frustrating for me is that I feel like if Trump had still been president, like I've heard this articulated by other people before, but basically, like I feel like if Trump had still been president, then the conservatives would have been like, "Oh, this is the best thing since sliced bread." This is the coolest and best vaccine ever. Everybody should go get jabbed. It's your patriotic duty.
Yeah.
But because it was Biden who was president, they were like, "Oh, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe there are problems. Who's to say? Like I have this doctor who says this, that, the other. I mean, they're Russian and they're not a virologist, but yeah, they said that maybe it's dangerous. So that's like yeah, that's a frustrating thing for me. There is just assessing risk properly, acknowledging that there's risk, not being a dickhole about it, and then not letting a political binary being what determines how you make medical decisions. That's like it's like one of the dumbest things we've ever done. So, but that I'm kind of I also think freedom is pretty dumb. So I'm not saying that I don't love freedom. I absolutely do love freedom, but freedom is not just like the freedom to make the right choice. Freedom is freedom to make the wrong choice and be an idiot. So that's kind of where I think that's part of the game is you see a lot of people getting resentful of freedom because a lot of people are stupid.
Yeah. And what did you think about masks and the masks mandates last year, or even this year? I guess because some places still have them.
I'm libertarian in that respect, meaning that I think that private businesses should be able to determine what's best for them. So if they say
Yeah.
you need to mask up, you need to shut the fudge up, and you need to mask up, and that's that. So I'm very. It's not whether or not I think the government, it's not a question of whether or not I think certain things should be right or wrong. It's a question of like who has the power to say it, who has the power to enforce it, and what kind of precedent do we want to set, not just for COVID, but for any future crisis. And so that's where, for me, it's like I don't want the federal government stepping all over this thing because I don't want to set the precedent that they can just say, oh, there's a dangerous situation. Everybody has to inject this thing into their body. I don't want to give the government that kind of power. But that at
Yeah.
the same time, that doesn't mean that they're wrong about what you should do, which is probably get a vaccine, wear a mask, wash your hands, do some social distancing, don't be going to concerts, like all that kind of crap. And then even if you're younger, so I have a family member, unvaccinated family member who was, I want to say 29 at the time that they caught it. They were on an ECMO machine, which is basically a machine that pumps deoxygenated blood out of your body and then pumps it back in oxygenated. I think their medical bill was $2.5 million just to keep them alive. They barely survived. If they didn't, if they didn't have a rich relative and a good health insurance, they'd be bankrupt right now. I don't even know if they'd be alive right now. They barely survived. They lost like 40 pounds. And the only pre-existing condition that this person had was that they were slightly overweight. So I'm not, like that's what I'm saying. It's like, sure, there's like a 1 in 35,000 chance that you're going to be the person who gets jacked up by the disease as a young person. But that doesn't mean that it can't be you. So, I'm in my 30s. I'm a little bit overweight. So if I'm a little bit overweight and then I catch COVID and then I have serious complications or I die, do I deserve it because I'm 20 pounds overweight? Like, should that be what people say at my funeral? Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
So 1 in 35,000 isn't zero, and when you have a country of 320 million, and you also have these like mitigating circumstances like being overweight or being older, those numbers start to stack up real quick.
Yeah. And even if you yourself are young and aren't afraid of getting it and possibly dying, you could also pass it to someone who's older and could die. Like there's also that, and I feel like a lot of people also like don't think about that part
Yeah.
because I hear people all the time like, oh well, I'm young, so I'm like, yeah, but you have like a grandparent, don't you? Or at least you have a parent that's like 65 or older. Like I'm pretty sure, or maybe
Yeah, but
most people
maybe
don't.
maybe they're
Like,
trying to get
yeah.
that sweet inheritance money. Maybe they don't want to say it, but maybe that's what they're up to.
That'd be terrible if that's what someone's secretly thinking.
Well, listen.
like, hey, if I get it, and I pass it to my
Yeah, I'm gonna go
parents.
visit Mima. Hey, Mima, you want to hang out? Yeah, well, I like I said, I'm a former Marine and a former cop, so I'm used to people being awful. So
Yeah,
it is what it
yeah,
is. But yeah, that's where intentionality doesn't matter, and I think a certain amount of people are just stupid. I'm a snob. So basically, what I would say is people are dangerous, and you have to assume that they're dangerous, and we can do our best and encourage people to do their best. But realistically, at the end of the day, you have to decide like, just because people are stupid, does that mean that we give up freedom? And then, if that's true, and we should give up freedom because people are stupid, then why haven't we given up freedom in the past? You know what I'm saying? Like this wasn't the first crisis that we had. This is one of many crises that the United States has undergone.
yes. Or as Marjorie Taylor Greene said earlier today or yesterday, 600,000 people a year die of cancer. We never shut
Oh
down
my
anything.
god!
Did you
Like
see that tweet?
I did,
Oh my God.
but like I wonder, like is she that stupid, or does she know that
No.
people will be
People,
mad at her, so it's worth
well,
it to
no.
her to tweet something stupid, and then it'll also reinforce people who love her? Like I have no idea. Like maybe she's just that dumb. Like maybe
There's
she just means it. Like I don't know.
I've met like people, grown adults, not like
Hmm.
teenagers or people in their streets. I've met grown adults who literally have said to me like, "Oh, I'm not going to take the vaccine because they haven't made a cure for cancer yet. So why would I assume that they made a vaccine for coronavirus and it's only been a year?" And I'm like, "You're an adult. How does
Yeah,
that even
why can't
like
they apply
compute to you?"
any logical
Like,
consistency whatsoever? Like that's
yeah,
yeah, that's
like cancer
amazing.
isn't even the same as like,
Well,
it's
as
just
far as I don't know,
yeah,
cancer isn't like transmissible via air. I don't know,
yeah,
but not person to
but
person.
yeah, like you at least can't get cancer from someone by the person with cancer breathing on you, at least to
As
my
far as we know,
knowledge.
I'm not a
Yeah,
doctor.
like yeah, I'm not either, but still, like, whew, that's a tweet, man. That's a tweet.
It is a
Um,
tweet. We can acknowledge
um,
that it's a tweet. That's for sure.
yes. Yeah, that's a tweet. That's an elected official. I'm ashamed to say which country, but I can be glad it's not my state.
Listen,
Yeah.
let's face it. I'm sure some Okies have said some wild stuff
Oh yes,
about
yes, of
COVID.
course. Oh, of course. No, like our no, the Republican chair of the Republican Party here, he like made videos talking comparing like vaccine mandates to the Holocaust
Oh yeah,
and
my favorite. Yeah,
yeah, like right, like it's just
yeah.
like what, like and what else is there? Like there's a bunch of crazy stuff that the Republicans have said about the vaccine or the virus. It's pretty bonkers, like whew. But no, it's funny because like I remember 6 7 years ago, my senator Inhofe, he went on the Senate floor to talk about how climate change wasn't real or
Hmm.
global warming, and
Oh,
he
the
had a
snowball.
snowball. Yes, so we call
I
him Senator
still
Snowball.
I
Yeah,
still remember the snowball. That's amazing.
yeah. But like at the time, we thought, oh, he's like one of the crazy people in the Senate. Like, nope, he's like just like normal guy now.
Yeah, he
We
that sounds
we
about
have crazier
average.
people in Congress now. Oh wow. Yeah. That's depressing to think about. Okay, let's change the subject.
Listen,
Like
I'm a typically pretty negative guy. Like I have a lot of fun with my
yeah,
negativity, but you don't want to talk to me about positive or negative subjects, because I'll just keep rolling with it. I don't care.
yeah. Um so oh yeah, another question that I skipped over. Who do you usually vote for in elections?
So I up until now I have voted exclusively local. Like basically that's really all I did was vote local. And then I left the top of the ticket blank because I don't think I've had a good presidential candidate since I started voting. Like I think I started voting in like 2012. So I just I couldn't feel responsible for what the United States does. And then in the last election, I voted for Biden, but that wasn't so much like a vote for Biden. that was a vote, kind of against Trump because I
Yeah.
felt like he mismanaged COVID. There was a bunch of informational issues. I was kind of wondering if he was actually playing 4D chess and he was a secret genius. And then he said a bunch of because he said a bunch of really dumb shit that made it like impossible for me to think that he was a secret genius. And then the economy was doing well and everything seemed to be doing okay up until COVID. So I was like, is he a secret genius? I have no idea. And then it turned out, no, he wasn't, and he was just lucky. And so, and disastrously unlucky afterwards. So that was kind of where I was just like, screw it, fuck this guy. How bad can Joe Biden fuck up? He might be the establishment, but he's still, like a regular knucklehead. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Like a normal person, at
Yeah,
least.
like
Yeah.
like a regular level of knuckleheadry that I'm
Yeah.
comfortable with, which is sad to say because it just means I'm a normie. But guess what? I'm a normie. So I voted for Biden on the last ticket. But that was really the only presidential race that I participated in.
Okay. So like locally, like for your state legislature,
I do look at what they
yeah.
say. So
Okay.
so for instance, like Stephanie Murphy is my local rep. She's Democrat, but she's not as Looney Tunes as a lot of progressives. She says some progressive stuff every now and then, but it's not wild and it's kind of in line with my stuff. There was a gubernatorial candidate who was all about like the assault weapons bans and stuff.
Yeah.
And I voted against him. It was the black gentleman who was caught
Yeah.
with some drugs and
Yeah.
some
Gillum, I think it's his name.
yeah
Yeah.
Gillum. So I voted
Yeah.
against Gillum because I can't get behind that kind of crap. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it is a mixed bag basically.
Interesting. Okay. I felt like that was going to be the answer you gave because I was like, there's no way this guy just votes for Republicans all the time. I just can't
Not
imagine
100%, no.
that. Yeah. Yeah, like that's interesting, especially in Florida, because Florida is
We're actually
interesting.
purple.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I don't
So
know. Some people are leaning towards Florida is not savable anymore.
well,
uh
Republican or
yeah.
Democrat? Because honestly, we're the most.
Democrats usually is what I hear. Democrats and like my Democratic friends and people on Twitter, they usually say no, Florida's not savable. We should try somewhere else. That's what I usually hear
See,
from
but
people.
that's
But
insane
yeah.
to me because I keep seeing
Hmm.
like a leftward shift
Hmm.
in politics. Like I see a consistently progressive shift leftward. So for me, what kind of it feels like is just over time, progressives and liberals and shit. You're just like the fucking ocean. You just never stop. So it's just like maybe you're right. Maybe you're
Yeah.
right about the shit that you're talking about. But it also feels like it's just like purple Texas. Who
Yeah.
saw that coming? You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't see that shit coming. Texas was a red bastion for forever, and
Yeah.
now it's purple. It's up for grabs. I think local will probably always be red, but the fact that it was even up for grabs at the federal level is fucking crazy. I never thought I
Yeah.
would see that.
Yeah. Because I remember, wow, that was crazy. That election night last year, like Texas was blue for like a good part of the night. I was like, oh, this is something.
Well, and,
But
and
yeah.
that's where the interesting thing is like you see a lot of right wingers talking about politics, right? Where they're talking about like redistributive economic politics. That was not a thing. That was not a thing. Even
Yeah.
a generation ago for my parents or whatever, or even my generation, it was just not possible for Republicans to talk about like economic issues and the downtrodden working class and all that kind of stuff. Or even if they did, it wasn't about the downtrodden working class in the context of like the government should do some redistributive economics. It was within the context of like, oh, you're working super hard, but all these welfare queens are not working at all and they're getting what you get. So it was like a
Yeah.
politics of resentment, not a politics of redistribution. And now we have redistributive economics becoming popular on the right wing, which is fucking insane. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, what was the other thing I was gonna ask about Florida? Oh yeah, how do you feel about Ron DeSantis and him being governor?
Oh yeah, I can't wait to join the Florida Guard and be a part of Ron DeSantis's private army. I'm super excited about it. I just released a video about the benefits of militias, and I'm so excited that my governor took my YouTube video seriously. Now I'm so I am so annoyed because like I think Ron DeSantis, at least from what I can tell, he is the future of the Republican Party, where he's a hybridization between like the corporate Republicans and the rhetoric of like Donald Trump's America First, and that's where for me it's the worst of both worlds, because then it's like
Hmm.
populist rhetoric and right wing populism, but then it's like none of the benefits
Yeah.
of like basically caring about anything. So that's where I see it as like a very cynical politic of basically capitalizing on the discontent of the right wing, but then doing nothing to assuage it, and if anything, like capitalizing off of the discontent of the right wing. So yeah, I'm horrified, and I unfortunately I think he probably has a successful blueprint. I'm
Yeah.
terrified, but I think that's what it is.
Hey, not if my governor has anything to say about it.
Well, what's your governor gonna do?
Kevin Stitt, let's see, businessman. No one heard of him until he ran for governor in 2018. Then he beat out all the establishment Republicans, mayor of Oklahoma City, lieutenant governor, to get the governor's nomination, and then beat out a Democrat who's our attorney general for 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he got in office and is pretty much like definitely the dumbest of all the governors that like Republican governors in this country. And definitely didn't treat coronavirus very well. I don't even know how to compare it, because I know when we did a quote unquote lockdown stay in order or whatever, it was only like a month, maybe not even a full month. Like
Listen,
it
you're talking to
wasn't.
a Floridian. I don't even know if we
Yeah,
technically
like,
locked down. Like I think
see,
we
that's
kind
what
of
I'm
did our
saying.
own
Like,
thing.
yeah, like I was about to
You
say,
locked
like,
down
I
for
know,
a
like,
month? Amazing.
about a month. Like I know that it was like what was it? Pretty much the entire month of like April, or most of April, then like beginning of May,
Hmm.
everything back open. No mask mandate at all. In fact, our legislature did what Florida's legislature did and passed a anti-mask mandate. So like it said that cities and school boards couldn't implement their own mask mandates.
Hmm.
Um, but some of the school districts ended up defying it. Um, and yeah, and what else was there that he's done? Oh yeah, he's also trying to make it to where our state uh, guard can't get vaccinated. I think he's the only governor in the country that's doing that, which is also pretty
Can't
wild.
or don't have to be
Don't have
mandated to
to.
do it.
Yes, don't have to be mandated to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got. Oh, I remember he had corona. He was also the first governor to get coronavirus too.
Hmm.
Um, and he went to a school last year, like a week or two after he had it,
Hmm.
without a mask. It was
Awesome.
pretty. It was scary to watch. Let's see. What are some other things? He's done a lot of crazy stuff. You could just Google him. No one takes him seriously as a human being, really, because he's quite clownish on the surface and whatnot.
But at what point?
Yeah.
So for instance, for me, like I think there's
Hmm.
a certain amount of precautions that you can get into if you're like if you're immunocompromised or whatever, you can wear a mask. If you're
Yeah.
eligible for the vaccine, you can get the vaccine. You can kind of, in a limited way, protect yourself, right?
Hmm.
So you can do those things. Whereas it feels like the stupid people are just going to do what they do. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And so at this point, is it even worth it to fight the waves of stupidity? or should we just say like this is natural selection, and just let people do what they do? You know what I'm saying? And that's where for me, like my libertarian
Hmm.
Darwinian lens is coming out, where I'm just saying, like, you know what, you don't want to mask up, you want to pretend it's not real or whatever. That's fine. Just you do you, and then if you get got, you get got, and then if you don't, you don't.
Yeah,
And that's the thing is like at this point, over the amount of time that we've done, I mean, we've been dealing with this for the better part of what,
almost two
like a
years.
yeah, 2 years now. Through a combination of Darwinian stupidity and people actually getting vaccinated, we actually should be getting close to some level of herd immunity. like,
Yeah.
like I'm not saying we're going to. I'm just saying, we should be close.
Yeah. Like for well, the thing is like the disparity of like who is and isn't getting vaccinated is like the problem. And on
Mhm.
some level, it's like what is it? Like urban areas or blue areas, kind of one and the same, but not
Mhm.
always. Their vaccination rates like way high. So like I don't know what it is in Oklahoma City, but I would assume it's probably 60, close to 70%. I'm pretty sure other big cities across the country somewhere between 70 to 90%. But like in rural areas, it's like what, no more than maybe 20 or 30%. I was looking at a map the other day of vaccination rates in each county in Oklahoma. I think in my county it's like 40%, 41%, which isn't bad compared to like other counties, but we also have like the 14th biggest city in the state, Shawnee, which is like 30,000 people. But like, so that's why, like, for me, it's like I'm not so much like saying we need mask mandates or anything like that. I mean, if some like place wants to do it, if some city wants to do it, or some store or schools do it, then go ahead. Especially when it comes to these schools, I think with some of the bigger schools, I feel like it kind of is necessary, but like I just don't think that we should be saying you can't protect yourself, because that's kind of what the like ban on the mask mandates in some of these states is saying that you can't do that. But that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to that, because the places where oh, and the other thing that I have a problem with is the hospitals, which we don't have this that much of a problem with it now, but maybe with the new variant we might have this problem again, where you know bodies are just piling up and they have to deny people health care simply because there's no room in the hospital because of all the COVID patients. But that's also kind of a problem with like rural areas in red states, because I know here in Oklahoma we've had a lot of hospitals closed down over the last decade. So it kind of created that problem. But it wasn't as bad this time of the year like it was last year. Because last year was just like oof, bad.
Well,
Um,
and that's
but
one of
yeah,
the
it's gotten
things.
better. But yeah, I get what you're saying though. It's gotten better now. Yeah.
Well, what I was kind of frustrated by, that I wish. Unfortunately, it seems like our politicians are only able to capitalize off of crisis. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Whereas if we were to really look at COVID as a whole and realize how vulnerable we were, then the solutions are quite clear, which are basically like we need to shore up like medical supply infrastructure. We need to
Yep.
shore up our medical infrastructure to make sure that there's some level of redundancy, because efficiency is not the only metric through which you judge like items. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? Like you also judge for like stability and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And I think what's frustrating for me is basically like we could be doing things that are incredibly positive, like basically like I don't know, basically building some level of like militaristic redundancy when it comes to like medical supplies or logistics chains or food, or any of the things that we know that we're going to need in order to survive and in order to compete with China. And it just doesn't seem like
Yeah.
anybody's even looking at it, because we weathered the crisis. So now that we weathered the crisis, we don't have to worry about it anymore. That feels pretty
Yeah.
fucking stupid. Just
Yeah.
my 2 cents.
Yeah, because that was like I think was the black pilling experience a lot of people had last year, was just like, oh, we didn't handle this very well at all here in America. We didn't do anything that we should have done. Like we didn't build any more hospitals so we could actually, take care of people. We didn't make sure people had money so they could stay home during these lockdowns. Even after the lockdowns, we didn't make sure people were still able to have some sort of, safety net to make sure they don't end up homeless. Don't even get me started about the um what is it, evictions and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It was just like so terrible. And I think the worst part about it was when the Democrats actually took back control of the White House and the Senate, they didn't
And
really do much of anything better. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, the $1,400 checks was good. The funding for the vaccine rollout
yeah,
was
but it's like, hey
good,
guys,
but
put us
like,
in the game, we'll fix everything, and then you get put in the game, and they're like, psych.
yes, like it's just
Just
like they didn't.
kidding, that was a joke.
Yeah, like it was like they still didn't really do like more or make sure that, like, oh, if we have this problem again, we could actually do something to prevent it from getting as bad. Or like it's just oof, like it was just like bad. But no, let's see. Okay, I think the last thing we'll talk about, because I was going to ask about healthcare, but we kind of touched on that already. So policing, what are some improvements that you think need to be made with policing here in America? So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say probably the things that I think are like most actionable that would get a lot of what we're looking to get done while not being objectionable from the right wing is universal body cameras should be basically mandated at this point and federally subsidized, meaning that if there's some podunk town in the middle of nowhere
Yeah.
and it's literally two guys who share a car and a radio and one gun with three bullets in it. They should still be able to afford, a body camera. So that's number one. Universal body cam should basically be federally subsidized. And if there's any money, any grants, community oriented policing grants or the militarized equipment grants going, it should be tied with universal body cams. That's number one. Number two, I think we probably could set up a general the Florida has the Criminal Justice Trainings and Standards Commission, which is a state level organization. I think it would actually be cool to have like a federal level organization that takes all of the training of all of the different municipalities, incorporates the best practices, gets rid of the worst practices, and then just makes recommendations every year. So kind of like a policing think tank. The other one that would be cool is field social workers. The way that we've had two-man units in high-risk areas in the past, we could do a two-man unit, one with a social worker in a polo and khakis wearing soft armor, and he could be primary on psychological calls, and then having that officer be, I was trained in crisis intervention training. It's a psych class taught by social workers. So basically having their partner being the same person who's trained in that kind of stuff. So that way they can take primary on site calls, de-escalate, make sure people weren't getting hurt or killed, and even de-escalate law enforcement to a certain degree where if a law enforcement officer is being aggressive in a way that's inappropriate, then they can still get what needs done doing and not hurt or kill members of the public. I think that would establish some trust back in the community. Finally, my other thing that I think would be very useful is, at least in Florida, we have a state level shoot team. So if a law enforcement officer is ever in a shooting, somebody gets hurt or killed, the state does a review of the shooting in order to see whether or not it's justified, and it's independent law enforcement officers who are doing the investigation to make sure that at least it wasn't a bad shooting. So what I would say is that same department should probably be present in every single state at the state level, and they should have their roles, duties, and funding expanded to include like corruption and brutality. So you have independent law enforcement officers who have served as cops in the past, but who are also charged with rooting out and looking for brutal and corrupt cops who are basically fucking up the job for everybody. So that would kind of be where I'm at for at least a start, and I think that's way better than almost what anybody suggested. That's actually feasible.
Yeah, I like all of those things. Some of those things I haven't thought of, and some of the things I definitely have thought of, like the social worker thing. I don't remember if you were part of that debate that Destiny had with
With
Vosh.
Vosh, where they were both right at the same time, but they kept calling each other assholes. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, that yeah,
Not I
those
wasn't
are
physically present, but I
yeah.
was there to lose a few brain cells and have my blood pressure spike. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, that was something. I'm still confused as to why they were talking over each other. And I
Because they're
don't
a divorced
yeah,
couple, and whenever in their same
yeah.
room, their skin starts to grate, so they can't like admit that they
Yes.
agree with each other, or else the kids might have like a false impression that mommy and daddy are going to get back together. So they have to treat each other
Yes.
very poorly in order to make sure that all of the kids know that mommy and daddy aren't getting back together. So that's my
Yeah.
estimation.
Yeah, because I remember Vosh now, he'll say that Destiny thinks social workers are scarier than cops. And I'm like, I don't think that's exactly what he was saying, even if I don't think he worded it correctly, but still, yeah, the whole Vosh and Destiny thing is
Yeah,
wild.
it sucks that we're in like
Yeah.
a bipolar or like what's like I think they call it like planetary tide or like planetary lock when there's basically like two suns or planets that are next to each other, but their gravitational pull is so similar that they just like lock around each other and spin around each other instead of being in like a normal orbit.
Mhm.
That's what Twitch politics feels like sometimes. Where like you're either you're either in the lock of one of these characters or you're in the lock of the other one, and even if you don't want to be a part of it, you still are no matter what. So but that's okay. That's Twitch discourse for you. So as long as we can actually
Yeah.
like spread decent ideas and get it out into the general public, I'm okay with whatever toxic baloney we have to deal with Twitch politics in general.
Yeah. Definitely some interest. I don't always watch the panels because I feel like
They give me a
sometimes I'm just
headache. I
like,
can't watch them. I make
yeah,
them and I
like
can't watch them. Yeah.
yeah, like
So
sometimes I'll see them and I'm like, 4 hours. What are they even talking about? Like, I
well,
don't think I want to see this.
God bless the 800 to 1,000 people who tune into my show weekly in order to have a headache at watching half a dozen people yell at each other for 2 hours. God bless them, but I can't do it myself.
Yeah. Last question I have here is, what kind of music do you listen to?
Everything, but I think we actually talked about this. So
Yeah, we
I
did a little
am.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am a fan of like alternative and punk and emo from like the early thousands. Like I love all of that stuff. Even the stuff that's supposed to be cringe, I probably like it. And and so my only I do like a lot of hip hop from that era too. But I'm kind of wondering if it's just because like I grew up with it, so I don't realize like how bad it is. Because I listen to the new stuff and I'm like, oh my god, this is trash, and like
Yes.
I can't tell if it's trash
Hmm.
or if I'm biased because I listen to trash, but I just didn't realize it was trash because that was my generation. I have no idea.
Oh, you were just listening to two different trashes that were different types of trash. That's what it was. No.
Right. Yeah.
what
And
what
and
rap
the new
like
trash is
yeah.
inferior to my old trash. I'll tell you that. So
What
yes.
rappers what
Mhm.
rappers from like back in the day that you like?
I love Ti.
Hmm.
Tip obviously. And
Yeah.
then I'm trying to think of who else I really listened to, but Lil Wayne had a few bangers from back then, obviously. And then I'm trying to think of who else. So there's songs, right? There's not
Yeah.
artists. There's songs. So Little White, Oxycontin. That's a banger. Like I don't, like that dude is a trash human being who has made the world a worse place. And that song is lyrically disgusting. The song is a fucking banger. So yeah, Little White Oxycontin literally made the world worse, and I would still listen to that like now. So yeah, so just a bunch of shit like that, you know. So
It's cool.
if it was trashy and shitty and popular in the early thousands, there's a strong chance that I like it.
Oh, did you ever go through a Limp Bizkit phase?
Okay, so it's funny that you said that because literally as you were thinking that, it's like I don't like Limp Bizkit, but Limp Bizkit, they did a rendition of the song Faith. So
Yes. Yeah.
and that was amazing. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just a great song. So like
Yeah.
you can hate Limp Bizkit all you want, and I'm not going to disagree with you at all. I think they're garbage artist group, but that version of Faith is amazing. And then what was it? The Foo Fighters too. Obviously, Foo Fighters are great. David Grohl
Yeah.
is a hero, and he's made good music consistently for decades. But they did a version. I want to say Prince was the original artist, but Darling Nikki,
Mm-hmm.
and that is just otherworldly how good it is. So yeah, so that would kind of be my thing where I know like more music literate people would be able to say like I love this band, I love this album, I love this, I love that. For me, I'm not a good person to ask about music, but I had friends who were good to ask about music, and so I was able to steal trashy and good things from my friends.
Right. Well, thank you for coming on. Where can we find you on social media and plug your Twitch stream and whatnot and your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so I'm typically live on twitch.tv/counterpoints. You can also catch me live on YouTube. If you type in counterpoints common spelling into the search bar, you should find me. We just broke like 13.5K, or we're getting close to 13.5K. So we're growing fast. It's pretty fun. Then if you, those are kind of the ways that you can, check me out. But patreon.com/counterpoints is one of the ways that I'm funded. You can also become a subscriber, do super chats during the stream or after the stream, more importantly. And yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I identify as centrist center right. I'm a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, and I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd. Just to announce this to the people in chat and to the people who are on your show, I've fallen behind on doing media reactions for Warhammer 40,000, but I uploaded like 6 of them this week. So there should be a whole bunch of content coming out in the next week, so everybody can stop complaining that I'm just doing debates. So yeah, that's very exciting.
That's cool. There's nothing wrong with doing debates. Debates are great.
Except for the headache and blood pressure issues, but yeah, sure.
That's true. Yeah. But thanks.
Yeah, and then do you just for my audience, because I think I don't know if you wanted to shout yourself out because you're doing politics or whatever, but did you want to kind of tell people your IRL ambitions and kind of what you're up to?
All right. Yes. So I am Gregory Hardin II. I'm run the YouTube show, the Green Corn Rebellion show on YouTube. You can also subscribe to me on Patreon. And I'm a substitute teacher, college student, going to school to become a history teacher. And I'm also running for state representative in Oklahoma's 26th district as a Democrat. The incumbent's a Republican, but it's definitely a winnable seat. You can donate to me. You can find the website gregory4hd26.com. Follow me on Twitter, Gregory Hardin at Gregory Hardin II on Twitter. That's pretty much about it. I'm 23. I'll be 24 in February. I know I look young, but I promise you, I'm almost in my mid 20s. So yeah,
Which still feels young to me, but that's because I'm becoming old as dirt. So
I know, right? Like it's crazy. Like when I sub, I get mistaken for being a student sometimes because I look so young. It's like, right, but okay.
sit
That's
down,
made
class.
it. Yes.
Got to get some
But yeah,
bass in there to scare the youngins into compliance. That's cool though.
yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks, buddy. I'm gonna jump on and talk with somebody else about
Recording
Warhammer,
stopped.
but I appreciate you sincerely and catch you soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, buddy. All right, and hold on, guys. I gotta find. Yeah, if y'all are in the Discord, you punk asses, then you can join up with me now. I'm still gonna talk to Celtic Kraut about Warhammer for like another 45 minutes to an hour. This is kind of like a chill stream day. But at the same time, like if y'all, sorry, I'm looking for Celtic Kraut right now. But if y'all are trying to video game and you're already in the Discord, then get your asses in here. We'll run a full team. So Celtic Kraut, send him a little Discord. Okay, cool. So he's already here. So let me call his ass. Ba 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba.
Oh, hey, man.
Hey, what's up, man? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Hey, I can't get my camera to work. Is that okay?
Yeah, I don't care. That's perfectly fine. Like I was kind of telling chat, this is like a chill stream, anyways. But I'm encouraging people in the Discord to join me in the Halo lobby while we shoot people in the face and talk about Warhammer. So I just
Hell yeah.
needed an excuse, which I will use my platform to just nerd because you know what happens is I get to talk about Warhammer in passing, but I never get to have any dedicated time specifically to talk about like the hobby and how passionate I am and how much I love it and what I do with it and like all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to take this opportunity, since you kind of invited me to do it, to just nerd out for a decent chunk of
Absolutely.
time. So just shouting out to everybody in the Discord or whatever. You can join me in the Halo game. I'm just not going to be talking to y'all. I'm going to be talking to Celtic and streaming. So how you living, buddy? And tell the world about yourself.
Doing well. My name is Seamus. I go by Celtic Kraut on, well, it's Celtic Kraut 75 on Twitter. I am Celtic Kraut on Discord. And I am pretty, well, I haven't been as active lately, but I have been pretty active in the, Counterpoints community and everything on the Warhammer side and stuff. It's been a lot of fun.
And
Honestly, it's cool
what's
to
up with
like.
your salamanders and why are they cowboys?
That's fucking
Like
cool, man.
well, listen, I'm not gonna lie. Like I want. So have you seen? We're gonna be saying all sorts of Latin, so I'll try to translate it for the people who don't want to get into it. The custodes are the emperor's bodyguard, and they're like
Hmm.
even better than space marines. They're genetically engineered. Who's it? What's it? They have jump pack troops that are available through the deluxe luxury manufacturer Forge World, and their
Right.
jump pack troops have revolvers. And since I saw
Hell
those
yes.
like revolver bolt pistol things, I was like, I need that. And then I saw your salamanders with like revolvers and cowboy hats, and I'm like, all right, somebody already kind of beat me to the punch a little bit. So what's your so for those of you who don't know, like Warhammer 40,000 is an expansive universe. It basically includes all science fiction tropes of history. And one of the cool things about it is you can invent your own headcanon for a lot of different chapters and stuff. You pick the salamander. So do you have a headcanon, or do you just like cowboy hats and revolvers?
Well, I'll be honest, like when I first had the idea, like whenever I have an idea for like any kind of like D&D or any kind of like fantasy stuff, I just kind of like mash up two different ideas and stuff like that. So I was just like, yeah, what if salamanders had cowboy hats? What if salamanders had revolvers? Well, to be honest, I was actually like looking at certain like third party like bits, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw the revolvers, and I saw like, and that kind of set me on kind of an inspiration thing where I was like, I wonder if I can find some like cowboy hats that I can like hit bash and stuff like that. So like I ended up coming up with an idea. I kind of created like I haven't like fleshed it out all the way, but I can't call my guys the Grim Herdsmen, like their company. So like they're kind of like, they have like more of a cowboy aesthetic because of like the relic weapons and stuff like that. They kind of like take inspiration from like these ancient weapons that they found and stuff. So I haven't really fleshed it out, but honestly, mainly it was just because I saw some cool bits and I was like, I want to put revolvers on Space Marines. I think that's a dope idea.
No, hey, you know what? Fair. And oftentimes that's how these ideas really start is basically like, can I do that? Is there a reason not to? And
Yeah, exactly.
and just to clarify, because like I'm trying to think about this conversation as if somebody was like brand spanking new and all they knew was that like Space Marines are like big genetically engineered dudes and that's all they knew.
Right.
Basically what I would say is you know, the salamanders are known for being like the friendliest chapter. They're on
Yes.
like a volcanic planet. They actually care about human civilians, which is rare
Mhm.
for Space Marines to care about civilians.
Yeah.
And in general, they're one of the few factions that actually have a positive reputation in the universe that's rarely disputed. The only dispute counterpoint that I have with the salamanders is the fact that basically like they would absolutely annihilate Eldar children if given the opportunity. So like,
That's and you know that's entirely fair. And you know with Warhammer, you can definitely like you take your good guys when you get them. Honestly, like sometimes they're even your good guys are going to do like reprehensible shit. Like so, like the thing about like the reason I chose the Salamanders as my kind of as my squad is because of that lore. Is because like I actually started following Warhammer in early 2020 when you actually it was when I started following you. Like
nice, happy to have ruined somebody's life.
absolutely I expect
Very,
reimbursement for my Space Marines.
yeah. Actually, I joke about that, but it is funny. Like I do get the occasional DM where somebody was like, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you for getting me into this and this, that, the other." And on one hand, I'm like, "That's awesome!" Like I'm happy I expanded somebody's world and gave them a universe to fall in love with and all that kind of stuff. And then on the other hand, I'm like, how much money have they spent on Warhammer? And it's like I've taken money that could have been spent on more productive endeavors and put it into
Yep.
plastic crack cocaine.
I have an entire section of my apartment that is dedicated to it now, thanks to you. So I mean,
Yeah,
there's that.
so
So,
yeah, so, which I'm simultaneously proud and horrified of. So, but I'm more proud than I am horrified in the fact that the part of me that is horrified, it's not actually horrified. It's more like I should feel horrified because whatever amount of horror I should feel for introducing people to an expensive hobby that I very much enjoy. And maybe I should be more judgmental of myself. Whatever money you're spending on the hobby, I'm probably spending more. So it's like a heroin or a cocaine addict, like talking to a younger heroin or cocaine addict, and it's like, hey man, I feel bad for getting you hooked on this drug, but also isn't heroin awesome?
it's fucking great.
Like, listen, buddy, I'm sorry for ruining your life, but
It was fucking
also
great.
isn't heroin / cocaine also awesome? Yeah, so.
I mean, before I ended up ruining my life with all the Warhammer stuff that I bought, I actually ended up like reading a lot of the lore initially. Like I started on the Horus Heresy, like per your recommendation. Like I started on that, and it actually really inspired me. Like I'm kind of doing like a fantasy novel of my own. And like it really inspired me with like kind of like grim dark aesthetic and everything. It kind of inspired me to really kind of lean into that a little bit more and not like the way like especially like Dan Abnett and like a lot of these different authors deal with like kind of the darker aspects. I had honestly, maybe I need to expand my horizons a little bit more. I had read some Game of Thrones, but other than like Game of Thrones, I hadn't really run into like a fantasy world that had explored that grim like theming, I guess. Like they do some fucked up shit in those books. Like it's nuts.
You know what's crazy though? This is unfortunate, and again, this is where I feel like I'm responsible for drastically improving, but also ruining a lot of people's lives. What happens when you get used to grimdark, and then you also see like a bunch of horrific things in the real world, is you kind of have like this preconception where you're like, oh, this is grimdark, but this is also just the way the world is, and that's one of the things that I really liked about the grimdark setting basically was the
Hmm.
fact that what was the fact that it's like all these people have like insurmountable and frustrating things. They have bosses who are incompetent. They have friendly people who are on the verge of getting them killed. They have enemies who are overwhelmingly evil and conniving and dangerous. And
Yeah.
yet they still try to express themselves within the best and worst frames of their humanity. And I just found that so appealing because I
Yeah.
can I can find the world dark and scary and anxiety inducing and terrifying and sad. But in spite of that reality, I want to be simultaneously the best and worst person I can be.
Right.
I can draw inspiration while these people are fictional. I can draw inspiration from that level of commitment to human endeavor, regardless
Right.
of outcome. And that's
That. Yeah,
that's what I find inspiring about the setting and the characters.
yeah, it's so true. Like it's especially like in the early Horus Heresy books is like those first three. Like the Space Marine chapters are like the Lunar Wolves. The what's the name of the? I can't remember, but like the Space Marines and the Lunar Wolves are cool. Like reading about their action is great, but like reading about like the historitors and stuff like that that are the humans that are joining the Space Marines on the ship, that's actually where it really gets interesting, where you see like how humans react in this world, like you're saying. Like it's really cool to see their reaction to like these horrific things, and like just the huge vastness of of space and stuff like that. It's just like I was like, wow, okay. Like I thought I was just going to be reading about Space Marines, but it's actually like all of humanity. So it's honestly really cool.
Yeah, and the thing that really sucked me in about that too is I had already become accustomed to Abaddon or whatever or Abaddon, whatever his fucking name is, the Despoiler being the bad guy, right? And I was
Right.
already aware that the Luna Wolves had turned corrupted and become the Black Legion. Like I already knew that lore, and so
Hmm.
what was so incredible about kind of going back and viewing the Horus Heresy from a new perspective, uh, almost from an old perspective, where you knew more about the universe before you even went into it,
Right.
is you fell in love with people that you knew eventually you would have to hate,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that made like the fall even more tragic and kind of like heart wrenching.
Yeah.
Where Garavel Loken, and then I forget who the other guy is, but the Death Guard
Uh,
guy.
the oh shit. I think it's oh the name Garrow. I think.
Yeah, Nathaniel Garrow.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
I always want to say Nathaniel Loken or or Saul Garrow, and like these are
Right.
all different characters because there's like
Right.
there's Saul Tarvitz from the Emperor's Children, there's Nathaniel
Hmm.
Garrow from the Death Guard, and then there's Garavil Loken from the Luna Wolves, and
Right.
you take on the perspective of these loyalist Marines when they don't even know that their legions are being corrupted and they're actually
Hmm.
celebrating the last heydays, the last positive heydays of their brothers before the fall, and then you just kind of
Yeah.
see this slow rolling denial and heartbreak as they realize that everything that they had fought for and could continue to fight for, there's nothing stopping the Imperium from like continuing its ascent to greatness
Right.
except for the corruption and betrayal of Horus Lupercal. So you see
Hmm.
this dream, like the Emperor's dream, like die slowly in front of your eyes, and just like it's like this like slow rolling, beautiful train wreck
Yeah.
that just sucks you in and makes you depressed and yet simultaneously happy that you got to explore like the most fucked up of what it is to be human, and that's the way that
Exactly.
I feel about it is they experience like brotherly and fatherly loss, and it just punches you right in the fucking guts. So that
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like that's a great way to put it. Like how it just kind of shows the best and worst parts of humanity. Like, um, man, I gotta get back on reading the Horus Heresy now.
Yeah, well, for and then just to kind of be like, oh, this is awesome, this, that, the other. One of the things
Mhm.
that I really appreciated. So I want to say it before I forget it because I think it's something that's not often noticed. The Luna Wolves are kind of like a more vicious like Ultramarines in some ways,
Yeah.
where they're
Hmm.
very practical and methodical and tactical in the way that they approach things. They like combined arms. They like being smart. They like putting everything together, and I just found that like very Ultramarine. And then the fact that they had like white armor and a wolf
Right.
aesthetic, and they were like these brutal. Like on one hand, they were like very diplomatic and very political, with Horus Lupercal being one of the most political Primarchs that existed, and also him having the Mournival, which are basically like his political consultants that he
Hmm.
simultaneously uses as consultants, but also plays in a way to
Right.
use them as a sounding board for ideas in public, where he actually plays with their emotions in order to achieve a desired result.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was so interesting seeing that, and then it wasn't just interesting seeing that, but the fact that they're now a traitor chapter hurts me physically. like, like
Uh,
if the Luna Wolves were loyalist, I would play Luna Wolves. I'm not kidding. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah. So they write good. They write good villains by making them heroes first and then turning them into villains over time.
Right. Yeah, that. Oh man, I haven't really read like that. It's interesting that you went into the Horus Heresy with like the previous knowledge of like 40K and everything like that. When I started Horus Heresy, I didn't know anything. So like reading 30K books was like my introduction to it. So like I honestly don't know a whole lot about like the 40K universe. I
Mhm.
know a lot more about the 30K universe, which is ironic. But like I still kind of knew I knew enough to like I kind of like picked and chosen like which things I wanted to like find out more about. Like I found out like more about the Mechanicum. Eventually, I want to do a Mechanicum army at some point. Like I, and then like I kind of tried to delve deeper into like the salamanders, but unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of great salamanders content. Other than I believe you recommended the Hell's Reach movie, which I did end up finishing, or at least getting to the part where the salamanders actually showed up, and that was amazing. Like
Mhm.
it was great representation. It was awesome.
Yeah, so spoilers for the people who are watching the Hell's Reach series. I'm gonna go ahead and ruin this moment for you because it's awesome.
Oh man, I'm
Um,
sorry.
no. I want to ruin it.
Okay.
So I'm. You just mentioned that they were in there. I'm gonna make it so much worse. So, so what was so cool about Hell's Reach? Because people were like, "Hey, you got to react to Hell's Reach. You got to react to Hell's Reach. You got to do Hell's Reach. This, that, the other." Like literally, like once a week, once a month, I was getting that comment. I was like, "Son of a bitch!" Like, okay, I'll go check it out. And I got that comment so frequently that I literally checked it out twice before I watched it. And I was just clicking through the movie looking for the battle scenes, and I couldn't find them. And I was like, why the hell are people recommending Warhammer 40,000 to me when they're like as a reaction when there's no battle scenes that I could break down? And then I actually watched it with the audio on, and it is so good. Like
Yes.
the politics and the voice acting and the way it's set up and the ultimate narrative arcs of every character. And here's the spoiler moment. There's actually a battle. It's maybe only like a couple of minutes long, but what
Mhm.
happens is each chapter has a reputation. The Black Templars are descended from the Seventh Legion, the Imperial Fists, but they're the religious zealots of the Imperial Fists, and they love melee combat. So they don't care about civilians, and they will charge forward into battle in order to like chop the head off of the enemy because they know it will reduce the length of the war and also kill the enemy more efficiently. So they would ignore civilians or civilian casualties and just go for the kill. Whereas the salamanders, they care about civilians and they care about securing civilians because they view that as like the lifeblood of the Imperium.
Right.
So basically, the Black Templars want to charge in order to kill an orc war boss, and the salamanders hold back, and this actually causes like a political rift.
Yep.
And like it leads to open bad blood between the two chapters, and it was actually unbelievably fascinating to watch that tension, because I was like, oh, they're space marines, they're big boys, they'll get over it. And they didn't. They were fucking they were like petulant little children, like, fuck you, no fuck you. And it was actually amazing to watch. So I don't know, how did you feel about that?
I actually, again, it really enjoyed seeing like the dynamics of like I enjoy seeing how like different like chapters like bounce off each other kind of thing. Like seeing how somebody like the extremist like kind of like Black Templars being met with the salamanders was just like great contrast to me. Like it was really cool. And I'm actually really glad like that one thing about Hell's Reach was like where it starts out like with that really sketchy kind of design and then progressively gets more and more clear. I'm glad that they introduced color there because like it was actually cool seeing like the green of the salamanders kind of like on this like barren wasteland and stuff like that. So I honestly thought it was just cool to see it's cool to see the contrast between them. Like seeing how different chapters interact.
Yeah, and then I hate to be bouncing back and forth, but I have to share one of the most fucked up moments of the Horus Heresy
Absolutely.
that bugged me so much, and it mind fucked me. But there's actually two of the things that mind fucked me super hard. One of them was Samus, the demon in like
Yeah.
in the Whisper Heads or whatever, where like I think it was Garavil Loken or whatever. But Garavil Loken, he gets like this like premonition in this voice when he's going into this area that's kind of like reputationally haunted, and basically like he's an atheist, and the Imperium of Man is or at this point the Great Crusade is like it's a secular venture. It's trying to get humanity to no longer believe in gods.
Right.
And so, oh man, if I could kill this wasp, that would be great. No. All right. So it's a secular venture. And so this guy starts hearing like a demon, like whisper in his ear. And then eventually the demon possesses somebody and he has to confront the demon. And like, it's this total and complete shock of he's having to engage in a life and death battle with one of his former brothers. So there's this there's this huge sense of betrayal.
Right.
But then not only is there a sense of betrayal because he's fighting one of his own brothers, there's an even bigger sense of betrayal because the way he had conceived the world is completely wrong. And, and he's realizing this as the way that he perceives the world being completely wrong almost kills him. And so there's like a triple betrayal. One, the universe isn't what he thinks it is. Two, people told him that it was different than he thought it was. And three, because of that mistake, he is now having to kill one of his friends. And that world-shattering narrative was like, I don't know, it hurt.
Yes.
It hurt to read in a good way.
Absolutely. It's interesting. Yeah, you brought up like betrayal and stuff like that. One of my favorite books in the Horus Heresy is later down the line. It's No Fear. Like it's the invasion of Calth, and it's written. The way it's written is great. First of all, it's written in present tense. Like it starts out like in absolute present tense, so you like feel like you're actually there. It almost feels like it feels like almost a found footage thing. And they have like each chapter starts out like so many hours until the invasion, like so many minutes until the invasion, and then when the invasion happens, it's just like so many minutes after the invasion. So like it's almost like an episode of 24 in the 40K universe, like where it's like it's taking place in real time. I actually when I was actually listening to it, I listened to it on an audiobook. It felt like this was like Warhammer 9/11. Like it was it was just like faced with these, you know, you're basically just seeing all these people just react and be helpless to like this absolute invasion and try to like try to like survive and actually like escape it and stuff. And the reason I brought up like betrayal is like, yeah, the not only did they not have any concept of like demons or anything like that, they had no inclination that their own brothers would like turn against them. Their own their own space marine brothers will turn against them. Like I believe it's the word bearers are the ones that end up like invading, and like they get super close, and like the concept of treachery was foreign to the Ultramarines. So like it was really interesting to just like for them to be like met face to face with like the concept of treachery as a battle tactic was really cool to read about. Yeah, like honestly, and like yeah, No Fear is a great like just book in general because like you always hear about like the Ultramarines and stuff like being just like the poster boys and just like they're always like the ones that like everybody makes fun of because they're everywhere. But like I felt like it was a really great way to like show the goodness or just like show they made Ultramarines interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that was so I am a fellow Ultramarines hater, but what got me going with the Ultramarines, number one, realizing that there's actually a historical meme for the 13th Legion, which is that Caesar's Legion was actually the 13th Legion.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
So the Legion that crossed the Rubicon with him was the 13th Legion, so that automatically makes it cooler. Because I really don't like the number 13. Like, I don't know if I'm just like a boomer, but, the lack of luck that's related to 13 is frustrating to me, so I didn't like that. But then making it Caesar's Legion makes it cool. And then, two, conceptualizing them as space Romans and kind of like adopting that aesthetic. And then also the fact that they, similar to the Salamanders, while Ultramarines won't necessarily care about civilians as much as anybody else, what they do care about is like civil administration and functioning planets. So if while they won't be like, oh my god, all these civilians died as a result, I feel like I'm ashamed and I need to commit suicide. They will be like, if we don't build anything, then this world is going to fall apart, and we can't let this world fall apart. We have to do something to make it right. And there's so few opportunities in this universe to see something positive and constructive,
right?
That like actually seeing somebody trying to do something is like occasionally it's needed just as like a breath of fresh air to kind of be like, oh, okay, there's still people trying to do the right thing. Like it's not all just murder and blood and guts.
The Ultramar system is like its own little pocket of positivity and like well-run government and stuff like that, while the rest of the fucking galaxy is falling apart, pretty much.
Right, yeah, and that's like the problem with the narrative is they're always on the back foot, but then it never seems to quite fall apart. And if I had like one critique of like 40K over 30K or whatever, it's like, we have the biggest orc threat ever. We have the biggest Necron threat ever. We have the biggest chaos threat ever. And it's like, okay, guys, like I get it. It's like the biggest threat ever. But like, can something positive happen so you have something to in turn destroy?
We need a little bit of hope here, yeah.
Yeah, we need to build something so the bad guys can take it from us. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah. So. But c'est la vie, and like I'm not complaining. I'm still in love with this universe, and actually like I had a bitter taste in my mouth because I broke down a lot of animations from Warhammer, and the Games Workshop keeps like copyright striking me, and I'm getting really frustrated because I'm like, hey guys, like I'm trying to promote your content. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to.
They're striking you.
Yeah, they're striking me because I'm reacting to their stuff, but it should fall under fair use. But they're abusing the YouTube program because they know that basically, like, I can't do anything. Like that, they'll copyright strike the shit out of me, and then I'll basically maybe eventually get the thing demonetized or whatever. Or get it set up. So So anyways, the point being, I got really frustrated to the point that I actually took like a week or two off of trying to work on their content. And then I realized that I love their universe too much, that like I'm in an abusive relationship and I can't walk away from it. So
It really does feel like that.
so it's like they're screwing me over, and I should hate them. And they're one of the most like frustrating intellectual properties that I've ever had to work with
Absolutely.
as a creator. But it's so good, I can't walk away. And
It's
so I don't know what to
creativity.
do about
Yeah.
that.
It's so weird because like creativity is like such a huge part of like the 40K like fandom and stuff like that. You would think they would encourage it, but like just
Yeah.
the
And that
different.
I think that's what most creators are complaining about. Is like guys, you're hurting your own community by trying to protect IP.
Exactly. And honestly, like it's really kind of frustrating too, because like up until a certain point, like I was looking forward to their streaming service, like Warhammer Plus. But like when I found out, like I actually got genuinely kind of upset, like when they started like demonetizing like the I think it's text to speech, like the if the Emperor had a text to speech device.
Which is
Well,
comedy.
yes,
It's
I know.
comedy and satire. Like how dare you? Number one.
Yeah. Well,
Number two. Like how? It's very clearly satire. It's a part of your intellectual property, but at the same time, like I think there's a certain amount of like transformation where it actually becomes like impossible to sue, at least in the United States.
yeah.
In the United States, if your work is transformational, it doesn't matter if the original IP is something. Satire and humor is almost always protected.
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of wondering if like the UK has like more aggressive IP laws or what, because a lot of people got threatened with like IP issues, and they just backed off like near instantaneously, and I kind of don't understand that, because at least in the United States, you could probably tell Games Workshop to fuck off and it wouldn't be a big deal.
Absolutely. Like I do know that like text to speech like did it voluntarily. Like I think they did it preemptively because like of all the IP like notices that like Games Workshop put on their website and stuff like that. Um but like like that one is clearly, like you said, it's clearly satire, it's clearly critique, it's all fair use. It should be 100% golden. I honestly like it's frustrating. What's really frustrating is like I was actually planning on going to like the Warhammer tournament in Orlando. Like they yeah, I didn't have enough like armies to like play or anything like that. But like what really kind of turned me off to like going to the tournament was the fact that I found out on the website that like if you have like if they find out you have like third party stuff on your armies and stuff like that, you're not allowed to use them in the tournament. I was like, come on, guys, like seriously, I'm still buying your stuff.
I still think it's a percentage though. So for instance, like
Okay.
I'm pretty sure if like 80% of the model is like Games Workshop, they really don't care.
Okay.
I have a bunch of third party bits. I have like Liber Demonica,
Yeah.
which absolutely like if I ever get big enough to get sponsorships, like I'm calling them and I'm like, hey, give me a promo code. Every single episode, we're going to be talking about Liber Demonica third-party bits,
Absolutely.
because it's just the best shit in the world. And realistically, it's stuff that Games Workshop should be doing themselves. But since they're not, we'll deal with what we got, right?
Exactly.
But at the same time, what I would say is like there's the percentage, and then also like there's a toxic community around whack, which is win at any cost. And these are the people who are like meta chasers who have nothing
Yeah.
better to do except for like study the rules, build a impossible to beat army based off of where the codexes are, and then basically just spend all their money on little plastic dudes in order to win like basically what amounts to fancy chess tournaments that you can do pay to win for. Whereas the narrative games, I would absolutely recommend this creator to anybody. There's a creator called Winter's SEO, and his strength is he does narrative games with friends. And as a result of him doing narrative games or whatever, he has such like descriptive narrative language where you can kind of see the cinematic in your head as he's describing it, and all it is like two nerds intelligently rolling dice for like 3 hours and talking about like the math in order to make the battle work. But then as they're talking about like the math in order to make the battle work, they're also talking about like cinematically what's happening on the tabletop. And it's so much more fun than just kind of like falling apart for the for like winning a little game where you just like roll dice and fucking yell at each other for like a couple of hours. And so for me, like my encouragement to you would basically be like, fuck the big tourneys. Because if they're a win at any cost, then those are going to be all the dorks who basically pay like thousands of dollars to have the latest models so they can annihilate people on the tabletop.
Right.
Whereas if you talk to like narrative players, that's where kind of like the tabletop and the miniatures and the narrative are going to come to life. And,
That actually, that's really cool. Like I didn't know there were like narrative battle reports out there. That's awesome. Like I actually am going to check that. I hadn't heard of Winter's SEO. I've watched a couple like battle reports on YouTube and stuff like that, but I hadn't seen like any kind of like one reason I got into Warhammer was like the narrative potential and stuff. So I really would like to see how like a narrative game goes. Like I've heard good things about it. I just like haven't tried it out.
It's hilarious. And so like I'm assuming we've lost whatever nerds that we already weren't down for this conversation. So I'm going to engage in even more nerddom. Okay. So there's this awesome. I forget this dude's name, but he's an Indian guy. He's super smart. And he plays Imperial Fist, and he paints just like the most beautiful Imperial Fist. And he has this character, I forget what his name is. It's like Tor Garadon or some shit.
Right.
And he has this massive fist with like a gravity cannon on his backpack. And so what happens in the narrative is there's like hundreds of orcs streaming through a mountain valley into the defenses of the Imperial Fists. And basically what happens is the Imperial Fists blow like a decent chunk in the infantry, but there's just so many goddamn orcs in front of their fortification that what happens during the orc turn is they obliterate the first line of Imperial Fist defenders. So they just like nuke like 15 Marines off the tabletop. Now, anybody who's worth their salt, when they have like a headquarters character who's the leader of their army, who literally buffs other players, they're going to retreat that character back into the defense, like the hold. But not this guy, because he's a narrative player, okay? So what he does is he charges the dude with the massive like fist and the gravity cannon backpack into the lines of the orcs. He kills like 15 orcs single-handedly, and then that character survives the next orc turn, and then he reinforces him with more Imperial Fists. So he survives and he wins. And I was like, you would never see that in a tournament.
Shit.
You would never see somebody like this would be the equivalent of like in a chess match where you sacrifice your queen because you think it would make a cool story. And then and that's exactly what happened. And then just because the narrative is so fucking insane, it paid off. And
this is technically unsound, but it's gonna sound so cool when I do it.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, like when you're the person who's making those bets, you don't know if it's gonna pay off. You're just playing the narrative in your head. You're like, I think this character would do this. As a result, I'm gonna do it. And so that's kind of that's like the entirety of the mindset, by the way. Like that's the entire thought process is, hey, wouldn't this be cool if this happened?
That's so cool.
And then just to share another nerd story. So same guy, Winter's SEO. He's playing a game and he's like he's Space Marines, and there's a killed a guy. Nice. So there's another player who's like an orc player, and I think Winter's SEO is like losing, and he's losing, but he wants to try to win. So what he does is he teleports Reavers, or no, he doesn't teleport them. He like grav shoots them into the back lines, which Reavers are like the most like useless but cool looking unit in the game. So what he does. Where's the fucking rocket launcher? This is pissing me off. So he grav shoots them into the back line. There's an unprotected orc character. This guy fucking uses grapple hooks in order to climb on top of the building. So basically, he has like no move characteristics.
Oh wow.
Like he doesn't get a move penalty because he has like gravity hooks or whatever. And
Oh
so
wow.
and then he actually assassinates the orc character that the other character wasn't defending. So you have these
Christ.
spec ops marines parachuting behind enemy lines, using grapple hooks to climb on top of a building, and assassinating an orc character in the last turn of the game in order to win. And it's like that's the kind of shit that you can only invent through like chance, because there was so many opportunities for the plan to go wrong, and it
Right.
just didn't.
Honestly, yeah, that's the really cool part about like D&D and like, you know, these different kind of like tabletop games like Warhammer as well. Is just like the chance aspect like really adds like weight to like the decisions that you make and stuff like that. It was really interesting. The only time I've ever actually I played Warhammer once, like with, because I have a kind of a limited number of like troops and stuff like that. But I went to the local Warhammer store, and they some guys were playing Kill Team, so I had enough troops for Kill Team. Kill Team, especially now, is so much fun, dude. Like it's just basically, I guess for anybody listening who doesn't know what Kill Team is, like Warhammer 40K is like you deal with like point numbers in like, or troop numbers in like dozens, like you have like dozens of troops on the board. For Kill Team, you like have 5 to 10. Like it's just like very tactical stuff. Like you have like 5 to 10 soldiers that you move around the board, move around the table individually. So like you get a little bit, you get a little bit more invested. It's like smaller scale, so it's a good introductory game for people who haven't played Warhammer, because that was me and I had a lot of fun. And like because of that, like I ended up losing, but like I had so much fun kind of like seeing, like, especially because like the scenery in the store was like awesome. Like seeing like the characters kind of like making the maneuvers on the board and stuff like that was just like, it really helps the kind of like you telling the story in your head. So like we kind of were coming up with our off the cuff like narrative stuff that happened and stuff like that. Like one last guy was left in the salamanders, and he was just like, I'm gonna go out with a bang, and he threw like a fucking grenade and stuff like that. I was going against the Custodes, and I got my ass kicked, but God, was it fun. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, speaking of other narrative things that happen that are hilarious. So the talking about Custodes. So there was this game, Still Winters SEO. He's the best. There's another channel called Tabletop Tactics, but if you listen to them talk, it's literally them just like reciting dice numbers back and forth to each other with no narrative, and that gets frustrating after a while. So what's cool or about this one, Custodes, and the narrative coming to life in front of your eyes. So it was Berserkers, like Khorne Berserkers, versus Custodes. So it's like the Emperor's Golden Boys versus, just like the most raged out, hulked out, angry Space Marines who will absolutely annihilate you if you're not paying attention. And so what would happen is like the Custodes would do well, but then they would get swamped by a bunch of Space Marines with chain axes, and they would just get absolutely annihilated. But they were controlling objectives, so they were still technically winning the game. And so what ended up happening towards the very end of the game is there's like 3 Custodes left on the board. And what ends up happening is Karn the Betrayer, who is a character from 30K, is in the tabletop, and he has a rule where if he rolls a 1, then basically he attacks his nearest friendly unit. And
Dear
so
God.
they're about to wipe out like one of the last 3 Custodes models, and instead Karn the Betrayer rolls a 1, and he murders the entire Chaos Space Marine squad that's right next to him. So this Custodes player who thinks he's about to get wiped off the map ends up getting like another 2 turns of play in because Karn the Betrayer has insatiable bloodlust and murders his own team.
Dude, it's so interesting because I know, I know, like, I've read the book Betrayer and stuff like that. Like, Karn is actually a really interesting character too. Like, the World Eaters in general are awesome. Like,
They're
lore-wise.
very tragic.
Yeah, very, very. Like, it was like downright sad what happened to Angron in that book too. Just like seeing his fall to like being a demon prince was just like, I was like, God, that sucks. Like, just like Angron's life sucks, man. Like,
Well, the thing about that, like the reason why I love this universe so much, and the reason why we keep kind of saying the same thing, but about different characters and about
yeah.
different situations, is that like they are so good at making bad guys who
Mm-hmm.
feel like good guys, but then have rational or almost rational explanation for why they go bad. And so
Right.
it's so rich to experience that because like you already know what's going to happen on some level,
Mm-hmm.
but you're kind of like dreading it because you like the bad guys. And that was the
Yeah.
interesting thing about Karn. So I never read Betrayer, but there was actually like a little bit of a conversation between Karn and Garavel Loken during one of the
Mm.
books, where Karn is basically like he's not just this like bloodthirsty berserker dude who's like ready
Yeah.
to murder everyone.
Exactly.
He's actually like a politician who's like super deft at catering to the whims and impulses of his boss, Angron.
Mhm.
And then also is while he's like an absolute beast on the battlefield, he also like shows a certain amount of cunning and intelligence when it comes to dealing with like the proteges and other folks from different legions. So he's
Right.
not just this berserker animal that appears in the 40k universe. And then that kind of asks this like interesting question. It's like, okay, in the 40k universe, he's just a dude who literally runs around slaughtering everybody he can in order to collect as many skulls as he can in order to satiate his own bloodlust. What happens between this like intelligent, cunning political operative who seems to love and respect his boss? I don't know how he is in the other books. But is also terrified of his boss and knows that he needs to play it intelligently or else he himself is on the chopping block. And so that's kind of, at least that was my impression from literally 2 pages of dialogue between 2 characters.
You definitely need to read Betrayer. That's all.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it really explores Karn's character in a lot of ways. He actually has a friendship, or kind of like a brotherhood with, I believe, one of the word bearers that like turns into a demon. It's like one of the like higher up word bearers that like has like a demon parasite or something like that. It's like Venom almost. Like
Yeah.
like he literally has like they literally describe him as like growing a mouth from his Space Marine helmet and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
like it's
Yeah.
like Gal Vordak or whatever. Like
Yeah.
there's a name for the general elites of the Word Bearer chapter or Legion.
Yeah.
Where they allow themselves to be possessed by demons because they think that they can either ascend to demonhood or become more powerful or they can serve their legion better or this, that, the other. And then there's one character in particular, I forget his name.
I'm
But
trying
they
to remember
actually-
his name too.
But they actually just released him on Forge World. They did. They literally just
shit.
released like a 35 millimeter version of him. And I think it's for 40k, not 30k, but I could be wrong.
Nice. But yeah, that character that they release, I'm fairly certain. Like I could be wrong, but like I'm pretty sure it's that character has a friendship with or it could be another character. I'm not sure. But anyway, he has a friendship in the book, and what ends up happening is like he is like tricked into having to kill his friend and stuff like that, and he's just like. He just sees like the downgrading of his legion. He sees like where they were and stuff like that, and just like seeing what happens to like Angron and seeing what happens to his legion. It just causes him to be dejected and stuff like that, and be just like just kind of like give in to his violence, give in to the nails, if you will, like the nails in the back of his skull and stuff like that. It's a great exploration of like the world eaters kind of ultimate fall. Like it's really cool.
And for those of you who are like unfamiliar, because like I'm not assuming
Yeah.
everybody in chat knows what we're talking about. The World Eaters in particular, like they used to be called like the Hounds or something like that, like the Emperor's Hounds
The
or
War
something like
Hounds.
that. Yeah, the Warhounds. And so they were kind of used as like a berserker butcher unit by the Emperor of Mankind.
Hmm.
But at the same time, they were also a little bit more noble before they encounter Angron. And Angron has something called like I want to say they're called like butcher's nails, and they're basically like cybernetic augments that
Hmm.
make you more like furious
Yeah.
and unstable emotionally. But the
Yep.
way that the cybernetic enhancements work, basically like it will on one hand it will make you like emotionally unstable. On the other hand, it makes you like an absolute monster in melee combat.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of like where Angron forces his sons to basically like mangle themselves,
Yep.
to torture themselves in order to be better berserker melee warriors. And
Yep.
that's kind of the thing. It's like, do you tell your dad to fuck off? Like what do you do when he's literally telling you to mutilate yourself so you can become a better warrior? And like you
Mm.
always see, these tensions in the sons of these Primarchs, where they want to please their leader, even if they know it's wrong. And
Yep.
that's where like the dynamics of family, like we probably use the term like brother or father like 1,000 times in this conversation, and the reason why is because it basically it's completely relevant. These are all, while I don't feel like I have anything analogous, particularly within my own life, that is akin to the levels of betrayal that these people feel. It still feels like very familial because of the way
Yeah.
they build these dynamics, and then it becomes personal for you, and then it hits hard when things go bad.
Mm. Yeah. Like no, it's just kind of like exploring like that aspect of like and you're I don't mean like I'm not from the military or anything like that. You have a military background, kind of like exploring kind of an aspect of that like brotherhood, like battle brotherhood and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Kind of amplified almost because they are literally brothers because like they're progenitors from their Primarch and stuff like that. It's just interesting to see yeah, it's basically just a family going to war essentially, and it's just like
Well, and I don't, maybe I'm like rude or whatever, so like I don't want to call it like people are like, oh, it's just WWE, it's just wrestling. And like on some level I can catch that vibe. On another
Hmm.
level, the reason why I don't like that is because I feel like while there can be like drama and all that kind of stuff in wrestling, and maybe I don't know wrestling enough, so I'm just talking shit at this point because I don't like that my hobby was compared to wrestling. But like, but at the same time, like it's deeper than that, and it hits harder than that. So that's kind of where, for me, it's not just like, oh, this person's talking shit, so this person has to fight him, and they're fighting over this belt or this, that, the other. It asks questions from you as the reader, where it's like, what would you do if the people you cared about most in the world, the people who had saved your life multiple times, the people who you had sworn your life to defend, like as brothers, what if they were also forsaking and destroying the thing that you had sworn your life to preserve? And so there's always like these competing allegiances and loyalties that actually rip at the principal characters, where there are no easy answers. It's like, do I kill all my friends and stay loyal to what I believe in, or do I go with my friends and forsake everything that I care about? And like nobody wins at all.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I think earlier we were talking about I'm gonna bring it back to salamanders because I love them, but like in I actually read Vulcan Lives,
Mm.
the one decent salamanders book in Horus Heresy. uh the the whole like Eldar killing thing, they actually explore that. Eldar, like there was I believe like they were doing a mission alongside the Night Hunters, if I remember right,
Mm-hmm.
the Conrad's Legion. And Conrad was basically egging Vulcan on, trying to get him to like give in to his more, give into his rage and stuff like that. What ended up happening is when they were fighting or when they were kind of rounding up the Eldar and stuff like that, I believe one of the Eldar like killed one of the salamanders or something like that.
Hmm.
And Vulcan's reaction, like Vulcan like actually just like reacted so extremely that he did end up burning. That just reading it, what it wasn't like, because I had heard that before, but like
Hmm.
actually reading about how tragic it was for Vulcan to like, this kind, the seemingly kind, like noble figure in the 40K universe, like basically failing, like
Hmm.
being human, like giving into into his humanity in a very extreme way by like giving into rage, was just like, I was like, oh man, this is tragic. This is actually really good. So it's interesting, just like even that aspect of it just shows the humanity of these superhuman beings. It's awesome. Like
Yeah, and this
40K
is
is awesome, you guys.
yeah, and thinking about this too. This is where I want to yell at all the femoids, right? Men have feelings. They're just like rage and apathy and fraternity.
Mhm.
Like it's just not. I
We
want to
have
look.
feelings, we just express them
They're
differently.
they're just really horrific.
Yeah.
But no, but like that's where part of the reason why I joined the military, even part of the reason why I was so interested
Mm.
in my grandparents' experiences is because I felt like whatever you want to say about war, like pretty much everybody who experiences war for a prolonged period, they're like, this is horrible. We should never do this. It's
Right.
fucking awful. If I could make it so nobody else experienced this, that's what I would want to do. And that's what they say.
Hmm.
Also, simultaneously, they say, that was the most challenging shit in my life. I loved the people that I served with. I had fraternal bonds
Hmm.
with these people. I love them sometimes more than my own family.
Yep.
And basically, it was such an intense and crazy experience that, I became better defined as a person
Hmm.
through the adversity that I experienced. And that's where this isn't just the Warhammer 40,000 universe, but this is also kind of like how people approach life. I do view like the playing with these themes and seeing how other people react and seeing their ideals and seeing their character and seeing how their character simultaneously plays into their ideals, but they also fail in their ideals. I think these are like moral intuitions, like moral projections that are worth playing with in your own mind and kind of figuring out like, what am I about? What am I
Yeah.
into? What are my goals? How do I view myself? How does the world view me? What are my ambitions? What are my ideals? And then where am I going to be compromised in these ideals? And I think while it is ultimately just a bunch of dudes in armor and genetic engineering like murdering the shit out of each other, I think these important moral considerations are why the universe is so entertaining, is because it's not just dudes in power armor running around killing each other. It's also a bunch of thematic questions that aren't easily answered.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like it's kind of just they're faced with impossible situations, and sometimes that's life. You're faced with kind of impossible situations, and you're forced to make the least bad choice in a lot of ways and stuff like that. So like it again really really interesting just to kind of explore humanity by way of Warhammer 40K. Like
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, buddy. Well, I'm hitting 60 minutes and I got four people
Yeah.
in the Halo game. So do you have anything that you want to shout out? Any causes that you care about? Any major points of Warhammer? Any entry points into the hobby that you found useful and interesting and you wish you had known day one? The thing that I'll shout out before I let you shout out is
Hmm.
get miniature glasses. Those are very helpful. My wife bought me for them as a joke, and I ended up using them a lot.
Oh shit.
And
Okay.
then, yeah, miniature glasses. And then also Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy,
Hmm.
DuncanRhodes, Duncan
Yep.
Rhodes Painting Academy. He was basically the head painter at Warhammer Studios for a while, and he does an
Hmm.
excellent job giving you step-by-step instructions in order to emulate what he does. I'm not going to claim that I'm anywhere near as talented as he is, but
Right.
I do feel like my modicum of skill is from watching him and using the tools and techniques recommended by him. So what do you have to shout out?
One thing that I use a lot, let's see, first of all, definitely get a wet palette. Like, that's one thing that you definitely would want to get, like, starting out as far as, like, painting and stuff like that. Like, starting out in the lore, I recommend what you've recommended. Like, the first three Horus Heresy books are an excellent, like, entry point into the lore. Um, I think another, kind of, uh, see if you can find a good hobby shop like in your area. Like that's honestly like talk to them. Like that's kind of a great way to like start out and like see what you might need and stuff like that. As far as um any kind of like paints and stuff like I actually use like Citadel paints. I use like I do a lot of dry brushing techniques. A good dry brush that I use is the ones from Artist Opus. Like you can check them out. They have like a great. They have like a really good selection of dry brushes. But that's pretty much like as far as like introduction into the hobby. Like just pick something you like. Pick a color you like just kind of like and see if there's space marines in that color and just start painting it. Have fun with it. Like it's awesome stuff. Another way you talked about like Duncan Rhodes, there's a lot of YouTubers out there with like some like different techniques and stuff like that. Just like look on YouTube. That's what I did before I even bought like a single pot of paint. I went on YouTube and I just kind of like looked. I figured out exactly like the techniques that I wanted to do before I started. So like kind of just look on YouTube, see what kind of strikes your fancy as far as like what you want to paint and stuff like that. So and just start painting. Like honestly, like it's a lot of fun and it's a great way to like spend time and blow off steam, and I really enjoy it. And I just wanted to say I appreciate you, Connor, just kind of being like a kind of a positive voice in the Warhammer community in a lot of ways, like encouraging people to like get into and stuff. Like it's honestly, it's really cool to like feel welcome in the Warhammer community by way of the Counterpoints community. So I wanted to just say thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. You're welcome for ruining
Yeah,
your life.
absolutely. uh, Once again, my Twitter handle is well, for my Warhammer stuff. My Twitter handle is Celtic 40 Kraut, like 40k. Like so, I had like 40k in the middle. So like Celtic 40 Kraut on Twitter, Celtic 40 Kraut on Instagram. I haven't been posting as much lately, but I'm gonna get back at the hobby table and get some stuff painted and start posting some pictures and stuff like that. So if you want to check out some decently painted salamanders, come stop by.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thanks, buddy. Sincerely appreciate it. If you want to come hang out in the Halo chat, let's do it. And then I'm gonna go talk to chat for a minute. Just make sure that if they threw any money my way, I actually honor that. And then I'll catch you in a bit. So thanks for coming on, and it was super fun. Thanks for giving me the excuse to do this.
Absolutely, man. It was great. I had a lot of fun too.
All right. Catch you, buddy.
Bye.
All right, guys. I want to be quick because I've had a long day. My work schedule changed, so now I'm working on Saturdays, which kind of sucks. But let me jump on this. Let me go to my chats. If y'all hung out with us while we were doing that, thank you. I appreciate it. I understand it was like a super nerdy thing. My chats. But at the same time, I hope that some 40k nerds hung out with us, and whatever 40k nerds did hang out with us, thank you for hanging out with us, basically. And then let me go to my channel for Twitch. Check out Twitch chat. All right, so if you want to do at Counterpoints in the chat, I'll change my OBS real quick so you guys can't. Hello? There we go. All right. So what, changed scenes, and because we switched over to NVIDIA broadcast, that's why it's not working. So what I was saying was, thank you to the 15 to 30 people who are hanging out with YouTube. Thank you to the 11 to 15 people who are hanging out on Twitch. I sincerely appreciate y'all. We're going to be launching the website soon. Like, share, subscribe, dislike, all that YouTube nonsense. Also, there's a whole bunch of Warhammer content that's coming out. So check it out before Games Workshop copyright strikes it. I appreciate you guys hanging out, but I want to go murder people digitally in the face and talk to them. So I'll catch you in a bit. So love ya. Parasocially, thank you for swinging by. Catch you in the next